Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, and then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted number 1 would be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, number 2 would be Mortal Engines, number 3 would be The Mule, number 4 would be Ralph Breaks the Internet, and number 5 would be The Grinch. And I only got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right for this weekend, which is a little bit expected since there were 3 new releases compared to last weekend's no new releases, but I guess there are some things about it that I just couldn't really predict, and I'm honestly kind of surprised about. So let's go over what happened in the overall top 10. Number 1 was, of course, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, making $35 million for an opening weekend. This is, of course, the lowest opening weekend for a Spider-Man movie in history, and that adds to a worldwide total of $56 million as of right now. Now, the budget is relatively low at a $90 million budget, so I don't think this is actually a bad start for this film, especially since we're entering the Christmas holiday, and this is a time where people go to the movies a lot, and I think Spider-Man will actually get a lot more attention from that because this movie is also getting really well received critically. So I think this is actually a pretty solid start for this film. I think this movie will definitely go on to make a lot more money, which is totally well deserved because if you saw my review, you know that this is one of my favorite movies of the year. Now, in my predictions, I thought number 2 would be Mortal Engines, but it was actually The Mule, making a little bit more money than I thought, making $17 million on a budget of $50. But right now, there isn't a worldwide total, so right now it's just kind of sitting with domestic numbers at 17 million. It's an alright start, but right now it definitely looks like it's going to need a worldwide total to double its $50 million budget and get to 100 million to be considered a success. Once those worldwide numbers come out, if they do at some point, hopefully, then I do think it will be on the right track to double that $50 million budget, because I've actually heard some pretty solid things about this movie, so I think a lot of people will also try to go seek this one out, like Spider-Man. Obviously, I think more people will try to go see Spider-Man because that's more of a family comic book movie, but I think The Mule will also get some attention as well, just considering how well received it is for the most part. Number 3, we have The Grinch, making $11 million, adding to a domestic total of $239 million. And speaking of the domestic numbers, it is $12 million away from outgrossing the first Despicable Me film domestically, so that kind of shows you where it is compared to the other Illumination films. But also, which is a little bit more important, it is $21 million away from outgrossing the Ron Howard Grinch film, which I honestly, since Christmas is literally next week, I actually do think it will be able to do. Call me crazy, but I actually do think it will be able to get to that point where it becomes the highest grossing Dr. Seuss movie ever. Worldwide it already is, but domestically is what I'm talking about. Speaking of the worldwide numbers, it is currently sitting at $372 million, which is $28 million away from $400 million worldwide, which is obviously very good for this movie. I've already talked enough about how successful this movie is, so let's talk about number 4, which is Ralph Breaks the Internet, which is only going to get more successful as the weeks go on, making $9 million, adding to a domestic total of $154 million, and on the worldwide chart, it is sitting at $285 million, so $15 million away from getting to $300 million worldwide. And as I've said before, this movie is actually going to get a lot more releases worldwide at the end of this year, but also at the beginning of next year, so it may be kicked out of the top 10 between now and January, but trust me, in January, the worldwide numbers are actually going to go way up because there's a lot more places for this film to be released there. Trust me on that one. At number 5 is what I predicted to be number 2, Mortal Engines, only making $7 million. Now, worldwide, it is sitting at $42 million, which is alright, but for a budget of $100 million, and you need $200 million to be considered a success, opening with $7 million isn't that good. It looks like we may have another Robin Hood on our hands, which definitely sucks for Peter Jackson. I've heard some mixed things about this film, like if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, it seems like opinions are a little bit split about it, so I thought maybe domestically there'd be more people giving it some attention, but not really. It's just kind of flopping right now. Maybe more people will see it as the weeks go on because, as said before, Spider-Man just came out, but then again, that movie didn't open up to huge numbers or anything, so it's not like there is a whole lot of competition. I feel like a lot of people just weren't going to see these movies this weekend, and Mortal Engines probably didn't capture their attention that much. Number 6, we have Creed 2, making $5 million, adding to a domestic total of $104 million, and it is $5 million away domestically from outgrossing the first first Creed film, which is very good, and that's definitely going to happen. And worldwide, it is sitting at $131 million, and that is $42 million away from outgrossing the first Creed worldwide. So this movie is still doing very good. I'm not sure worldwide if it will be able to make that $42 million to outgross the first Creed, but I do think definitely domestically that $5 million to outgross the first one will be added next weekend. So that's very good for this film to see. Number 7, we have Bohemian Rhapsody making $4 million, adding to a domestic total of $180 million, and on the worldwide chart it is sitting at $635 million. I literally have nothing else to say about this movie. You all know everything I have to say about Bohemian Rhapsody at this point, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's a very successful film. Good job. Number 8, we have Instant Family making $3.7 million, adding to a domestic total of $60 million, and on the worldwide chart it is only at $68 million, but it still needs about $28 million more dollars to actually double their $48 million budget. So right now it's still not doing that good, and it's about to leave the top 10, which is quite crushing, I guess, for the studio. But then again, I haven't really heard the strongest buzz for it. Like, I've heard that people liked it, but I haven't heard people go like, this is the greatest film that everyone needs to see. That's definitely not what they're saying at all. At least that's not what I've heard. Number 9, we have Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald making $3.6 million, adding to a domestic total of $151 million, and worldwide it is sitting at $596 million. So this movie's about to leave the top 10, not outgrossing any other Harry Potter film before it, but also not even outgrossing the first Fantastic Beasts film. That is sad. Even though this movie has made its money back, it's still pretty sad that it hasn't outgrossed any of the other installments of the series. And finally, closing out the top 10, Green Book making $2 million, adding to a domestic total of $24 million. It still needs about $22 million more till it actually doubles its budget, but I think around Oscar time, when they start to make more nominations, I think more people will definitely try to go out and see this film. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I'm going with Aquaman. I've heard a lot of people talking about how the ticket sales are like super crazy and junk, so I think that'll be number 1. Number 2, Mary Poppins Returns. Number 3, Bumblebee. Number 4, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And number 5, The Mule. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And if you got your predictions right for this week, you're going to get a shout out right now. Unless you didn't get it right, then I'm sorry. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.